One morning, a student asked him, "How does one truly change?" Aristotle stopped walking. "Watch a potter at his wheel," he said. "The clay remembers every touch. So does your mind." What he described that day wasn't just philosophy. It was the first recorded observation of what we now call neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reshape itself. But here's what gets buried. Aristotle didn't just explain it. He'd uncovered how to weaponize it. Modern labs with fMRI machines would later prove him right on every count. When you repeat a thought or action, physical pathways form in your brain. Keep repeating it, and those pathways become roads, then highways. Soon, your behaviors run on autopilot down these neural routes. Aristotle's breakthrough was realizing this could be controlled. "We are what we repeatedly do," he wrote. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. But the full implications are darker than they sound. If habits shape who you are, then most people aren't making themselves. They're being made by whatever random patterns they've fallen into. The wealthy merchant who can't stop working. The drinker who swears he'll quit tomorrow. The thinker trapped in endless worry, all following neural roads they paved without realizing it. Aristotle's solution was radical for its time: conscious repetition. Not just practicing skills, but deliberately rebuilding your automatic responses. He trained Alexander the Great this way, not with lectures, but with daily exercises to reshape how the young prince thought. Today, we have the science to see why this works. Myelin sheaths thickening around frequently used neural pathways, synapses strengthening with each repetition. Your brain literally rewires to match what you do most. The ancient secret isn't that this happens. It's that you can take control of the process. Which leaves one question: if your habits are building your brain whether you like it or not, what kind of brain are you building? History records a strange pattern. Across centuries, continents, and cultures, the world's wisest thinkers kept returning to the same idea. The Buddha called it dependent origination. Marcus Aurelius wrote of the Logos. Lao Tzu described the Way. Different words, the same essential truth. Everything is connected. Yet here we are today, living as if the opposite were true. We divide life into separate boxes: work, family, health, money, as if they don't affect each other. We chase success while neglecting relationships, then wonder why we feel empty. We treat our bodies poorly and expect our minds to function perfectly. The ancient Stoics had a name for this blindness: the dichotomy of control. They observed that people constantly worry about things they can't change while neglecting what they actually control: their own actions and judgments. Einstein saw the same problem in modern terms. The thinking that got us into this mess won't get us out. This presents a paradox. If the greatest minds across 3,000 years all pointed to the same fundamental truth about how to live well, why does each generation have to rediscover it for themselves? There's a clue in how knowledge spreads. When Plato taught, he didn't write down his most important ideas. He made students work for them through years of dialogue. The Buddha refused to answer certain questions directly, forcing followers to contemplate them. They weren't being difficult. They understood something we've forgotten. Real wisdom can't be given. It must be earned. Today, we want answers fast. We read a quote and think we understand it. We watch a video and consider the lesson learned. But as Seneca warned, the path to wisdom isn't through words, but through application. This explains why we keep making the same mistakes. Why self-help books sell millions but change few lives. Why we nod along to ancient wisdom, then go right back to our old patterns. The mystery isn't that we lack answers. It's that we refuse to live by the ones we already have. In 1889, a professor in Turin, Italy, witnessed something strange. A horse collapsed in the street, beaten by its owner. A middle-aged man rushed forward, threw his arms around the animal's neck, and sobbed uncontrollably. The man stayed there for hours until friends carried him away. That man was Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the sharpest minds of his age. Days later, he wrote his last sane words: "Sing me a new song. The world is transfigured, and all the heavens rejoice." Then silence. The philosopher who had challenged all of Europe's beliefs spent his final years in darkness, cared for by his sister. But this isn't just a tragic ending. It's a mystery. Nietzsche's collapse came at the height of his powers. His last works contained his most revolutionary ideas. He'd just begun writing about his central concept, the eternal return, the idea that every moment repeats infinitely. His notes show something peculiar. In the months before his breakdown, he'd become obsessed with a question. What if you had to relive your life exactly as it was? Every pain, every joy, again and again for eternity. He called this the heaviest weight. Then, the breakdown. Coincidence? Or something more? Medical historians still debate what happened. Syphilis? Brain cancer? Or something his own philosophy predicted? Because Nietzsche had written years earlier, when you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. He knew the risks of his work, knew that tearing down old values without replacing them could be dangerous. Yet he continued, which leaves us with troubling questions. Did Nietzsche see too deeply? Did his own ideas contribute to his collapse? Or was there something else at work, something hidden in those final unpublished notes? But to understand this, we must go deeper. The year was 360 BC. Two men stood in the Academy's courtyard, locked in a debate that would echo through centuries. One was Plato, the founder of the school, his silver beard catching the Athenian sun. The other was his brightest student, a young man named Aristotle. Their disagreement began simply enough. Plato pointed to the sky. Truth exists up there, he said. Perfect forms, eternal ideals. What we see here are just shadows. Aristotle, hands stained with soil from his morning studies, shook his head. He gestured to the earth. Truth is here, in the things we can touch, study, categorize. Start with what exists, then reason upward. This was no minor quibble. It was a fundamental split in how to understand reality itself. Plato believed in a world of perfect forms, the ideal chair that all physical chairs imperfectly copied. He trusted reason over senses, saying our eyes deceive us. His allegory of the cave became philosophy's most famous metaphor, humans as prisoners seeing only shadows of truth. Aristotle countered by collecting hundreds of biological specimens. He dissected cuttlefish, studied bee colonies, catalogued constitutions of 158 Greek states. Where Plato saw shadows, Aristotle saw patterns. Give me a child's observations, he argued, over an old man's theories. The consequences rippled outward. Plato's approach led to mathematics, abstract reasoning, the very concept of theoretical physics. Aristotle's method birthed biology, political science, the scientific method itself. Their students divided into camps. The Platonists seeking perfect ideals behind messy reality. The Aristotelians meticulously documenting reality to find its rules. The battle wasn't just academic. It shaped how civilizations would pursue knowledge. When medieval Europe rediscovered Aristotle, it sparked the Renaissance. When scientists like Galileo challenged Aristotle's physics centuries later, they did so using Plato's mathematical idealism. Both men agreed on one thing: truth matters. But their methods for finding it couldn't have been more different. One looked heavenward. The other kept his eyes on the ground. In the ruins of Ephesus, carved into the Temple of Artemis, an inscription survived when most of Heraclitus's writings burned. No man steps in the same river twice. Most hear this as poetic metaphor. Few realize it's a precise observation about reality itself. Heraclitus noticed something fundamental. The river appears constant, but its waters never stop moving. The man seems the same, but he's changed by time, experience, even by the act of stepping into the water. This wasn't just about rivers. It was the first recorded insight into what physicists now call process philosophy. The view that reality isn't made of things, but of continuous change. Modern neuroscience confirms this at the cellular level. Your body replaces nearly every atom within 7 years. Your thoughts reshape your brain's structure daily. Even solid objects, when magnified, reveal particles in constant motion. The implications are staggering. If nothing stays the same, then identity is an illusion we maintain through memory. Problems feel permanent when they're actually passing. Being yourself makes no sense because there's no fixed self to be. The Buddhists reached similar conclusions independently. They called it anatta, no permanent soul. The Stoics built exercises around it, reminding themselves, this too shall pass. Yet Western philosophy largely forgot Heraclitus's insight for centuries. favoring Plato's eternal forms. Only recently has science brought us full circle to his ancient observation. Quantum physics now describes a universe of probabilities rather than fixed objects. Biologists see organisms as processes rather than static beings. Psychologists treat the self as a narrative the brain constructs, all echoing what that lone thinker observed 2,500 years ago by watching a river. In 2018, a team of Harvard neuroscientists published a study that would make Heraclitus nod in recognition. They tracked brain activity in volunteers performing simple tasks over months. The results were clear. The physical structure of the brain changed with each repetition. Neural pathways thickened, unused connections faded. This wasn't just about learning. It showed something deeper. The brain doesn't just record experiences, it physically becomes those experiences. The you of today literally isn't the same as the you of last year, not just psychologically but biologically. Quantum physicists reached similar conclusions. At the subatomic level, particles don't exist in fixed states, only as probabilities until observed. The universe isn't a collection of objects, but a web of relationships in constant flux. Biologists studying cell regeneration found an adult human replaces about 330 billion cells daily. Your stomach lining renews every 5 days. Your skin refreshes monthly. Even your bones completely remodel themselves every decade. Psychologists at Stanford demonstrated how memories alter each time we recall them. The past isn't a fixed record, but an evolving story edited with each retelling. All these discoveries point to one inescapable fact. Heraclitus was right in the most literal sense possible. You never step into the same river twice because there is no same river, and no same you to step into it. The implications ripple outward. Personal growth isn't about finding yourself, but creating yourself. Suffering becomes bearable when you remember it's reforming you. Every moment offers a chance to redirect who you're becoming. Ancient wisdom anticipated modern science by millennia. The question isn't whether change happens, but whether you'll be passive clay or the potter. Close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine waking up to discover your entire life. Every memory, every relationship, every belief was an elaborate simulation. Not metaphorically, literally. Your body isn't real. The world around you doesn't physically exist. Even the voice in your head right now belongs to someone else. Now open them. This isn't science fiction. It's philosophy's oldest thought experiment, Plato's cave for the digital age. The Greeks pondered it. Descartes wrestled with it. Modern physicists seriously consider it. Here's what changes when you really internalize this possibility. Your problems shrink. That argument with your partner? That career setback? Viewed through this lens, they become data points in a grand simulation. Serious, but not sacred. Your mind opens. If reality might be constructed, then every belief becomes worth questioning. Every assumption deserves scrutiny. Your priorities shift. When nothing is guaranteed to be real, only two things matter: the quality of your experience and the integrity of your choices. The Stoics knew this. Their view from above exercise, imagining looking down on Earth from space, served the same purpose. It wasn't about escapism. It was about perspective. Neuroscience confirms why this works. When you consciously challenge your reality framework, your brain forms new connections. Literal cognitive restructuring occurs. So try it now. For just 30 seconds, truly entertain the idea that everything you perceive as solid might be malleable. Notice what changes in your breathing, your muscle tension, your sense of what matters. That shift you feel? That's philosophy in action. Not abstract theory, but practical mental technology. The ancients didn't just speculate about reality. They built tools to reshape how we experience it. So here we stand, you and I, at the edge of what the ancients knew. We've walked through marketplaces with Socrates, traced Aristotle's studies, watched Nietzsche's final days, and seen modern science confirm what philosophers guessed centuries ago. The knowledge sits before us, clear as the writings on Plato's scrolls. Your mind can change. Your reality is malleable. Your habits build your future. But history shows something else too. Knowing changes nothing. The Athenians who heard Socrates still voted for his death. Nietzsche's readers quoted him while missing his warnings. Today's scientists prove ancient truths we promptly ignore, which leaves one question hanging heavier than all the rest. Will you be different? Not tomorrow. Not when things settle down. Now. In how you think today. In what you choose this hour. Because here's the uncomfortable truth no philosopher sugar-coated. Wisdom unused is wisdom wasted. You can nod along to every point, agree with each argument, then walk away exactly the same. Many will. But maybe you won't. Maybe you'll pause next time anger rises and ask what Epictetus would do. Maybe you'll reconsider that habit while remembering Aristotle's words about repetition. Maybe you'll catch yourself fearing change and recall Heraclitus's river. That's how philosophy survives, not in books, but in lived choices. So as this ends, the real beginning waits. The scrolls have been read. The lessons stand clear. The only thing left to write is what you do next. There's a story rarely told about the search for wisdom. We speak of enlightenment as if it's only light, clarity, understanding, peace. But every ancient tradition warns of something else. The Desert Fathers called it the noonday demon. Buddhist texts speak of makyo, visions that deceive seekers. Even Socrates faced his divine sign holding him back at crucial moments. Next time, we go where few philosophy channels dare. What happens when wisdom turns against itself? When the mind that seeks truth becomes its own worst obstacle? Why the brightest thinkers throughout history, from Nietzsche to Simone Weil, warned of knowledge's double edge. This isn't about abstract ideas. It's about what actually happens inside a human mind pushing too far, too fast. The breakdowns, the crises. The moments when understanding becomes a trap. The archives hold records. Plato's warnings about unprepared students entering the academy's inner circles. Medieval alchemists coded journals describing the black sun. Modern neuroscientists mapping what happens to brains in prolonged isolation. All pointing to the same pattern. Enlightenment has shadows, and they're not what you'd expect. You've heard the ideas, you've followed the arguments. Now here's the real test. If this reached you, if any part of it truly landed, then prove it. Not to me, to yourself. There's a reason Plato's academy forced students to wrestle with questions before giving answers. Why Buddhist monks spend years in silence before teaching. Why Nietzsche said, wisdom must be earned, not given. So here's your choice. Close this and move on, letting these thoughts fade like most do. Or, comment philo below. Mark that you were here, that you listened, that you're among the few who don't just consume ideas, but engage with them. The philosophers we discussed today didn't write for praise. They wrote for those ready to think. Are you one of them? Thank you for watching and see you next time.